Welcome back to this week's Marketing IQ Live, where it's a 30-minute marketing leadership upgrade. I'm John Wilkes. I'm the head of strategy at Somebody Digital, and I'm joined by Cristiano Winckler, who is head of digital and operations. So every 2 weeks, we try to have a conversation here where we bring things that our clients are talking about, that we hear kind of consistently across industries, things that are working, things that are not working, and just try to have a really kind of constructive conversation around that. This week, we're looking into our own AI workflows and playbooks, because I'm sure many of you are being told to do more AI, and that kind of pressure is higher than ever. So what we're going to start to look at is what we've actually been doing that's helping us be more effective. And what I mean by effective is just effective and not just busy, because I asked a question to myself yesterday or a few days ago. I was like, if AI is so good and I'm supposed to be more efficient than ever, like, why am I busier than ever? And I think a lot of people are feeling the same. So that's why I got Cristiano here. So he leads the AI and workflow adoption here at the agency. He works with the clients on a lot of this stuff. So he has just a lot of insight into what's working, what's not, where AI is helping us and where it's actually hindering us. So Cristiano, we're going to go on a journey exploring this world and just try to get as practical as possible for any of the marketing leaders in particular that are listening right now.
Sounds good.
Right, let's start with the human element, because there's a lot of fear, obviously, with AI replacing jobs, especially in marketing. So where do you draw the line right now between what AI should be doing and what humans need to be owning at this point in time? We might be eating our words in 6 months' time if the AI gods get to do what they want. But as it stands now, where is that line between where AI ends and the humans begin?
You see all those posts on social media that say, I have replaced my whole digital marketing agency, my whole SEO team by a fully automated workflow using AI. That is not possible. You cannot do that. So let's draw the line there. AI is a tool, but it does need a specialist that knows what it's doing, that has been doing this for years, to use AI as a tool and do things faster, better, more efficiently, of much higher quality, right? As a tool, AI will help us produce reports, do research, analysis, collect data, analyze that data way faster than before. I would say that a few years ago, it would take us weeks to collect data and do analysis on that data. And it was a very expensive exercise because you would need to buy specific data sets from specializing companies. Now, data and information is basically a commodity. You can get the information you need in a few seconds. Knowing what to do with that data, which direction to take, finding the nuances, understanding the workflows, what's required, that requires the specialist still. And I think we're still a long way away from having AI to be able to fully autonomously do a lot of these tasks without someone. I will use the term babysitting here. It might not be the most appropriate one, but without someone looking after what AI is producing. As you said a few moments ago, we might change our minds in a few weeks from now because things are evolving fast. But for now, that's it. Humans are still needed to understand the context, what clients want. AI has no information or no knowledge on the political battles that organizations, specifically corporations, have internally, and the type of report you need to produce, how to send specific information, how to present specific reports. So having that taste, the discernment, and build those relationships, that's still a human element. So there's a clear distinction between what AI can do and when a human is needed, in my opinion. So we're not losing our jobs unless we don't learn how to use AI in our favor as a tool. But other than that, I think specialists are still very much needed.
Mm-hmm. I think that when I see our SEO team in particular using AI, like guys that are just deep in the weeds and have been for 10, 20 years in using in SEO and everything around that, when they are using AI, it's a totally different experience, right? Because they know what they're looking for, they know what they're trying to find. Whereas if you think, let me go to AI and create some content or whatever, like it's such a general level that you can only see that what it's not doing or where it's taking liberties if you're a true expert in that field. And I think that's a bit of the issue that we have at the moment, right? That people think, oh, this reads. It's AI is so confident, right? It can deceive you if you're not a true expert in that field. But yeah, when you play someone who is an absolute world class executor at whatever that thing is with the tool, then I think the results are next level.
100%. And we have experienced that ourselves as well, because we work with some partners and sometimes they do work using AI. And by accident or not, sometimes they will send us reports or data that has not been verified by a human. And when we read those reports, we can totally see that it wasn't reviewed and the data is not necessarily accurate. AI will hallucinate, AI will try and please humans. So, and if you're an expert, you know that is trying to deceive you, maybe not on purpose, right? And I'm talking about the output that AI provided. So yeah, the expert is 100% needed. Otherwise, you're going to be making decisions based on incorrect data or incomplete data even.
Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of organizations, a lot of people on LinkedIn, the kind of people that we're auditing say that they're using AI, but like when you dig into it, it's ad hoc prompting with kind of no real structure or data governance. So what does it actually look like when an agency or company builds like AI into daily operations, like from your seat?
That's a good question. A lot of companies still use, to your point just a few moments ago, AI using prompts, and you come in, you ask a question, you get the answer you need, and you move on. And probably other team members or other departments in that organization have different prompts for different things. So there's no standard, there's no shared knowledge, there's no structure in anything that is done. So when you do it properly and when you create workflows, when you feed AI with information about clients, when you give context about what's been happening with that project and what the goals and ambitions are, when you feed AI with data and the right information, and everybody uses the same workflows and the same systems internally, this is when the magic happens. Then you can really augment not only the skills of your best people, but this is when you find the efficiencies. This is when you do the best quality work. You feed AI with workflows and context, and then you get amazing outputs, great contribution that will help you do things better, faster, more efficiently, basically. So the key is that feed AI with the right context, have structured way of executing specific tasks, which are the workflows, basically, connect to the right tools. And this is when AI can do things better, faster, and will help the human, as we call it, right, deliver things in a much, much higher quality with much higher standards.
Let's get into the weeds of that, Cristiano. If I'm a marketing leader watching this, and I totally agree with you, right? If me and the whole team were working from the same data sets to the same workflows, that would change our business. How do we do that? Like what are we all using the same Claude project? Like like give me the specifics of how I get my team doing that, because I like exactly what you're saying.
Okay. We'll start the conversation today. Perhaps we're going to need a couple more sessions to do a deep dive into each of the necessary elements. The number one thing you need to do is to map out your processes. And you do that in a tool-agnostic way. That's very, very important. This is what we have done. You can use AI to help you map out those processes, or ideally, you do it kind of manually, right? And when we say map out your processes, is to understand how you do things. At Somebody Digital, we have several departments and we work with multiple clients. The departments will do things in very specific ways and clients will require things in very specific ways. So what we did was to try, I'll use SEO as an example because it's the easiest one. How does the SEO team do keyword research? How do they write a content brief? How do they write a piece of content? How do they do competitor analysis, keyword gap analysis? So it's important for you to do this, as I said a few moments ago, in a tool agnostic way. Forget about AI and don't think about SEM, Rush, SE ranking, or any of your other tools you use. You're mapping out the process. When we do keyword research, we try and find out keywords and we group them in topics and we find keyword volume and etc. When we do gap analysis, we analyze our competitors, we find the top competitors, we do research based on X, Y, and Z. So you're mapping out the whole process, right? Most companies don't have those documents written yet. This is when you can actually use AI. You jump on a call and you ask your SEO specialists to explain the process to you, and you tell them deliberately, do not mention any tools, just explain to me how you do it, and you record that call. And then you can use that call recording to build that process for specific batches of work, because SEO will be split into different types of work, and each of those types of work will require different tools and etc. Right? So that's the very first step. You need to map out your workflows and your processes.
Okay, and on that step there, like how granular should somebody go? Should it be, I do this research, then I take this research and do this other thing? Or do I leave space for AI to optimize or to add value to my process?
No, not yet. You do it very granularly, yes. Mm-hmm. You're not trying to modify your process, you're trying to map out your process.
Okay.
As you do that, you will find gaps later. And you can potentially use AI to optimize your process later, but that comes at a later stage. Right now, the objective is you want to map out your processes first, right? Mm-hmm. Don't try and do two things at the same time. It's not going to work. You're going to have to make changes to a process, to the way that people already do stuff, already perform certain tasks internally, and then you're going to fail because you're trying to accomplish two things at the same time. This is when most companies actually fail. They bring AI too soon. They mention tools specifically. So it has to be tool agnostic. It has to be a fully manual process. When I say fully manual, when you're mapping out the workflows, pretend you're doing everything manually. That's what I meant, a fully manual process, right? When you have that, you're bulletproofing yourself against any updates in tools, models, anything really, right? If you focus in the beginning, let's suppose that you are Claude organization. Everything you do, you use Claude's code and use specific models from Anthropic. That's great. But then in a couple of weeks from now, maybe Codex comes up with this amazing model and a different tool that is superior. If you do things in a way that are specific for a tool that you're using, it's going to be very hard for you to migrate to a different tool. So if you do it in a tool agnostic way, it's very easy for you to migrate through systems. And we do that all the time because things evolve really, really fast these days. We get an announcement 1 week of one of the models, that one of the models is the best model at the moment. And the week after that, the competitor launches a better one. So you need to be able to migrate in between tools. So that's key. That's why you need to do things in a way, you need to describe things as if we were doing them manually. Then it's going to be tool agnostic after that.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask as well, with the workflow there, is it specific task? Let's take SEO. Let's say I was doing keyword research and competitor analysis. From that analysis, I may then pass it to the web team or the conversion rate optimization team, who I'd want to have a look at the page structure once we've done it together. Are you talking like multiple steps when it gets passed on to other departments and they do it? Or would it just be the SEO specific task and then the CRO department task?
Yeah, you do the tasks first. You're not trying to integrate anything. You're just trying to understand how your departments execute certain tasks. Mm-hmm. The integration, the improvement, the fine-tuning, polishing, this all comes later, right? Mm-hmm. You will use AI. You're going to be able to automate a few things. There's some other things that perhaps you're not going to be able to automate because of whatever reason. Maybe the technology is very unique and you can't integrate with the AI, but you do it in a very granular way. We started doing it based on our departments. SEO, what do you typically do for our clients every month? We were fortunate because we started recording all our internal calls a year and a half ago. So all we had to do was to feed AI with the call transcripts, and the whole process was already there. This was the best decision we made as a company. We record everything we do, right? but in a few points, we actually had to interview team members. So you ask the SEO team, what do you do for a client every month? Oh, we build the reports, we do content implementation, we do competitor analysis, we keep an eye on keyword ranking position, we do gap analysis. Brilliant. Tell me more about how you do the gap analysis. And then you go one level deeper. Then you have the granularity you need. And then you move on to the next process and the next process. When you're done, you can compile everything and you build your manual workflow. You can use AI for that. And then you move on to the next department. Paid media is the trickiest of all, in my opinion, because paid media will have multiple channels. The way you manage Google Ads might be different from the way you manage Bing. They are related, but they're different engines. Completely different from the way you're going to manage LinkedIn, and very different from Meta, for example, because different campaigns will have different objectives and there will be nuances there. So ideally, what we found when we did it for ourselves is you want to do it department per department, workflow per workflow, until you get a level of granularity that really describes your system really well.
Mm-hmm. And so once you've mapped that out, like what's next? Like how is that then mapped into the daily operation for that team?
So you've now mapped everything out. You know your workflows. This is when you bring AI in. We had to change tools, as an example, for some of the things that we did before. We want to get Claude or Codex or whichever other AI tool that you use to help us with those workflows. Now the task is to create the automations. What can AI do for us? You're still going to need the human to analyze the work, audit the outputs to ensure everything is consistent, there's no ambiguity, data is what you expect, and there's no hallucinations or no made-up data that can happen with AI. This is when you get AI, any of the AI agents or any AI tools that you use, and this is when you start bringing in tools, right? We want to do this, we want to do that. An example, we were trying to add one step to automate one step of what we do when we do keyword research with a very specific tool. That tool does not have API access and it doesn't have a desktop version. It was very complex for us to actually integrate that tool with our workflows. So we had to find an alternative tool, and we did. It was a little bit more expensive, but it had an API connection. We integrated with that, and now we can do the work faster. So this is when you're going to use AI to identify the things you can automate, the things you can use AI, and start building those integrations. We recommend you start with perhaps one or two processes first. Don't try and automate the whole department. If you pick SEO to start with, and we're going to use SEO as a reference, maybe keyword research can be automated. Start with that. One column, one vertical within SEO, right? Integrate with the tool. You're going to have to work on prompts. You're going to have to work with integrations. Get that done. And then you move on to the next workflow and the next until you can integrate the whole department and you have a complete workflow for SEO, as an example.
And again, for a marketing leader listening to this, they're like, great, I love what you're saying. We've got our workflows mapped out. Who is doing this in an organization? Most people listening to this are going to be kind of mid-sized to enterprise. Do they hire in a head of AI? Is this a strategic leader? You're talking about making sure the data is correct. Do you have a data governance person as well? Like, how is this very new role being held together, especially because it goes across so many departments with its intricacies?
That is a great question. And the answer will depend a lot on the way your organization is structured. I had the pleasure to be part of 2 roundtables at Brighton SEO last April, one of them with agency owners and directors, and we're all sharing experiences. Whatever I'm going to say now is applicable to any organizations, by the way. And there was a consensus that you need to find your champion. You need to find that one individual that understands digital marketing workflows. It doesn't need to have deep knowledge on SEO or paid media, but it needs to understand how paid media, SEO, CRO, analytics, how they work together. It needs to have an understanding of how agencies and digital marketing works, and it has to be an AI enthusiast. This is the guy. It doesn't need to be a developer, by the way, but this is the guy that will be able to connect agency work or digital marketing work with the possible workflows and automations you can utilize with AI. If you don't have that individual, if you do, maybe you have someone that really understands digital marketing operations, but it's lagging behind on the AI understanding, or maybe you have a great AI specialist, which is maybe a developer but doesn't fully understand digital marketing operations, then you might need to have two individuals, but ideally one champion that can ensure that things get done, right?
Mhm.
We did hire someone to be the AI engineer, and I'm the one in our organization that bridges that gap between what the AI engineer can do in terms of automations and our requirements, our workflows, and we get everyone involved. Now we are at a point that he can speak directly with all heads of department or even other individuals that are in charge of daily operations, because he now understands a little bit of the workflows as well. But you do need someone that can help you bridge that gap. It might be one individual or two people working together.
Mhm. One of the other things you said is the importance of building this so it's platform agnostic. Can you kind of dig into that a little bit more of what that specifically means to people?
There are a few ways you can do that. The way that we have done it, we try and build a knowledge base that can be, the knowledge base remains the same, and that knowledge base can be utilized by any tools. So you can even have one single knowledge base and have two or three different AI agent or AI tools utilizing that knowledge base, right? The knowledge base is tool agnostic. There are a few ways you can do that. What we have done, we have all our files in Google Drive. That's how we do it. We just need to structure those folders in a way that allow AI to understand information in a logical way. There's a guy called Andrew Karpathy. He used to work for Tesla. He's now working for Anthropic, if I remember correctly. And he came up a couple of months ago with a methodology that he called the LLM Wiki for agents. You can, if you Google for Andrew Karpathy LLM Wiki, you're going to find a GitHub repository with all the information your AI will need. It consists on 3 layers. You're going to have the raw data. This is where you feed your working folder with any raw data that cannot be modified. This is the source of truth. This is the reports you download from Google Ads, Search Console, any other files. Then you have the wiki layer. AI will analyze the data from those files and will start building wiki files. Wiki files will be markdown files. We prefer to use markdown files because that's the file extension that all AI tools prefer and is easy to understand. It's basically a doc or a TXT file with a few I wouldn't even call it programming language, but a few markers that will identify titles, paragraphs, and etc. And the other layer is then the structure, which is how that folder is built, where the information can be found, and etc. So with those 3 layers, you have what we call a knowledge base. It's a brain. It's kind of a database, but it's not really a database. Kind of a database because AI can go through those files, have context on everything, and if it needs to reference any of the raw data files, it will be there, and the schema, the structure will tell AI where to find that information. Every day, it summarizes what it has done, what it has found. For example, if you had a call with a client yesterday and you recorded that call transcript goes to the raw file. Maybe you have a task that AI every night will check for new call transcripts. We'll get that context and it will update the project folder with additional context. That's one example. We use a tool called Obsidian to help us visualize and organize the knowledge base. It's not needed, it's optional. It's just easier for us to share the data with multiple team members if needed. And you can have a Obsidian vault either for the agency or per department or per client, whichever your preference is. But by having that knowledge base, if we stop using Claude tomorrow, and we want to start using Codex from OpenAI, or if you want to use a fully autonomous agent such as Hermes or OpenClaw, for example, we just need to point that new agent to the folder and say, read the index file, and that index file will have full context on everything that's happening there, historical data, and that new model or AI tool can just take over from there. So that's why it's important to build things in a tool agnostic way and build those knowledge bases, because then you can very, very easily migrate and utilize different tools.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit here, but I think it's important. If you're in an enterprise size client and you have multiple teams, right? You have the SEO team, the product marketing team, brand. Are they all using the same knowledge base? Because whatever work they're doing, because so often we work with clients that, yes, it's the same company, but there's different agendas going on, right? Like people are kind of, there's a lot of conflict. So how do you, or do you have a central knowledge base? And if that is the case, who and how is that maintained?
It's the same logic. That's why this structure is important. So at the very top level of the knowledge base, you're going to have information about the company, objectives, target audience, value proposition, everything. And then you might actually have a digital marketing plan that you have built or the client has shared with you. And then you can have subfolders, okay, for the paid media, this is the subfolder, this is the structure. For SEO, this is it. For analytics, this is the other folder. And other team members, other teams will then have access to the top level data, also other department folders, but they will have their own folder. So the 3 layers still stands. This is what has worked best for us. Once again, every organization is different. Perhaps some organizations need to do this differently. But in my experience, in our experience, having one folder per organization and have subfolders for specific departments is usually what works best.
Okay, great. I think one of the big challenges in marketing right now that I see with a lot of clients as well is context degradation. Because a lot of people don't even realize that's happening when you're dealing with like huge quantities of data, as you're talking about here, especially if you're uploading reports and outputs and content and everything like that. When the kind of quality of the output drops, like what can you explain like what that context degradation is and how we kind of manage that, or how clients and leaders can manage that? Because that is something that I can think really undermine the confidence of marketing and the numbers and the activities that people are doing.
Good news is there are ways to improve context to prevent degradation. Bad news is you're not going to eliminate the problem completely. That's why the knowledge base is so important. But let me describe what content degradation is first, and then we can explain how we manage to work around that and improve the way we preserve context when we use our AI tools. So every AI tool, if you use Claude Code, Codex, or even if you use Hermes agent or OpenClaw, any of those tools, right? They will have limits based on tokens. Imagine your brain has a certain capacity. I can only read, 1 million words per day. And after that, I'm going to need to write my notes on a journal. And I will go back to that journal after those 1 million words have been consumed. Of course, you're not going to have all the detail in that journal. You're going to try and write as much information as possible, but you might miss a few things here and there. That's kind of how AI works. So you're going to have context windows that for some AI tools will be 200,000 tokens. Token is how you measure the context window and the memory that can store. And some other tools will have 1 million tokens, right? As you interact with AI, as you ask AI to read files, produce data, even your chat window, the more you interact with it, the more work it has to do, the more memory it needs to use from that context window, and starts increasing. So maybe you are at 60, 70% of the context window, as we call it. If you are using 1 million tokens, I can use Claude Code as an example of that. This is when starts forgetting things. It's not going to remember the details of certain conversations you have had at the beginning of the conversation. It will forget nuances of certain things, instructions you gave a few moments ago. So memory starts degrading as that bucket of tokens start filling up. Then two things can happen. One thing happens automatically. The AI tool will compact its memory and will free up space so you can continue with that conversation. But when it does that, specifically if you're using models that have a very high context window, 1 million tokens, for example, when you do that, a lot of the context and the detail of the conversation is lost. When you work with models that have a smaller context window, 200,000, like GPT 5.5, if you're using Codex, for example, then it will compact faster when it reaches 95 to 100% of the context window. So when it reaches 195,000 or 190,000, 200 possible tokens that you can use in that session, it will compact. And in our experience, you can let it compact once or twice, but after that, you're going to start losing a lot of context and the details will be lost. So that's basically the explanation of how the memory works. The more you use it, the more you use in the same session, the more likely will be that over time starts forgetting things, quality of the outputs is going to degrade, and that happens silently. It doesn't warn you that it forgot a few things. It doesn't have all the details anymore, right? That's the trick. You will find subtle signals of that. Maybe the responses are no longer of the highest possible quality, it's no longer the same. It comes up with items that are not even part of that conversation. This is when you know that the context window is reaching a critical point and you need to do something about it. There's one thing that we do, is a solution that we typically use, and that's why the knowledge base is so important. We prepare a handover document. The moment we start flagging that context is degrading and quality of the output is no longer good, this is when we stop and say, write a full handover based on everything that we have done, objectives of this project for continuity, to ensure continuity, and I'm going to give that handover to a new session. And you start a new session in the exact same folder. When that session starts, it will read the handover. You will go through all the files that are required for full context. You already have your knowledge base, so everything has been recorded, and then you can continue with the work at a very high standard. It's not perfect. It will eventually forget a couple of things, so you need to be very, very careful when you do that handover. It has to be thorough. It has to contain a lot of detail, but not too much that when the next session reads that handover document, it already exhausts the whole context window already. So you just need to be careful because it's going to be way better than letting it compact, but at the same time, it's not perfect.
And a leader watching this that manages a team, like, what is the practical of what to do with that information? Like, is that something that should be a rule that you kind of set it at a top level, like you manage your context windows? Because some people will understand what you've just said, some won't, but the ramifications of that are huge, right? Especially if you're working with data and reports where accuracy is important. If somebody doesn't know that and it starts to drift, so should leadership be setting rules around context windows or preventing data degradation? Like, what's your take on that?
100%. So we need to remember that different individuals will be at different levels when it comes down to using AI as a tool. Some of them will understand certain concepts a little bit better than others. What we do as a team, we have our famous or infamous Friday AI sessions where we share knowledge, where we try and educate our team members with the latest tips, tricks, and best practices when using AI, do's and don'ts. That's quite important. And we do have a set of guidelines that we try and share on those calls with our team members, trying to educate them on how to best utilize AI and how to prevent some of these challenges that we all face: memory degradation, quality of the output, and etc. So yes, 100%, you need to create best practices. This is not a long document with 5 to 10 bullet points that will do the trick. You don't need to teach the world or the whole organization to detail certain things. Just explain to them what they need to do, and that alone will increase the quality of which how your team members utilize AI and the AI tools significantly. You're going to see a massive difference there. So yes, work on some guidelines, work on education as well. That's quite important. Things evolve really fast these days, so it's important to keep up and ensure that whenever something new comes up, your team has access to that information and they can act upon it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're going to wrap it up there, Cristiano. I think we've gone through a lot of stuff. We could probably do a half hour on most things that we spoke about there, but I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have any specific questions, concerns, inputs that they want to add? No, it's a quiet audience. Everybody knows everything that we're speaking about, Cristiano. No questions. Everybody can just get on.
Or no one understood anything. So it's either one or the other.
Cool. But that's great. Thank you, Cristiano.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next time.